Welcome to Right in Front of My Face, the podcast talking about big things happening right in front of us. I'm your host, Shannon Hull, and this episode represents the end of quite a long journey to get this season completed. It has been a long ride for season 3. This is actually going to be my last podcast for this particular season, and I wanted to end on this episode specifically because of the topic, burnout. This is a really personal episode for me because I'm processing my own burnout at the moment. In September, when my kids went back to school, I suddenly had some silence and space to realize how much emotion I've been carrying around for the last year. As I started to get the Google photo memories of last September that included my son doing school alone in our basement, I realized just how much sadness, fear, grief, and anxiety I've been shouldering. And it really truly triggered me to the point where I just had to take a pause and honor what I was feeling. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't depression. It was almost a weird apathy and detachment. As I do, I was chatting with one of my friends about the feelings I was having. And she said, I think you should talk to Lori Prutsman because it sounds like you're just completely burned out. Lori is the Seattle Burnout coach. She's a corporate powerhouse turned life coach who is now dedicating her life to helping people through burnout and finding the best version of themselves. As someone who experienced very real physical and mental burnout, she's an expert in getting through this phase and coming out successful on the other end. In this episode, we talk about what the real definition of burnout is. I reveal a bit about my own struggle, and we talk about how to get through it. If you take nothing else away from this hour, please know that if you are having these feelings, you are absolutely not alone. I am very excited to have this conversation with you, Lori Prutsman, the burnout coach of Seattle. Our paths crossed through a mutual friend.
Yes.
And I had expressed some feelings of apathy and frustration. And, I was just basically venting to a friend. And she said, you might want to think about getting in touch with Lori. She's the Seattle Burnout coach. And I was like, what? That sounds amazing. Because after the last 18 months, I've actually told my husband, I'm pretty sure that I'm not actually depressed. This isn't manifesting in the same way that my anxiety did, but I'm just tired of doing everything. I just have felt an apathy. So I am so excited to have you on today.
Thanks.
To spend an hour of emotional purging, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes. Fair to say.
But you've started this new venture in your life. You come from a corporate background, kind of went through this process yourself, and like a phoenix from the ashes, rose above and decided that you were going to help some people through their own burnout.
Yeah.
And I imagine your business is booming right now.
Yeah.
But I will introduce you. So Lori Prutsman, the burnout coach, your bio is wonderful. In the span of 20 years, you've worked with Fortune 500 companies. You were a senior leader at Amazon and Booking.com. You worked really hard your whole career, traveled 60-hour weeks, and started experiencing burnout of your own. I guess I'll just let you take it from there.
Yeah.
Because that's a little lean in. So why don't you take us through a little bit of your background, give us the 5-minute version of kind of how you've arrived at this place.
To where I'm at today.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So I started, my career in sales, and ever since I can remember, I've been very, very driven, type A personality, wanting to get promoted all the time and just push to prove my worth.
We're like opposite ends of a magnet. We found each other. That's why I like you.
Exactly. And I worked at Amazon for a while and I loved it. I loved both of my corporate jobs I had. I mean, it was an amazing experience that I learned, and it's what led me to where I'm at today. And it was I was working at Booking.com, and I'll give you kind of the short story of what happened. I was coming off of a year of traveling 50,000 miles. Our corporate office was in Amsterdam, so I'd go there roughly 4 times a year.
Wow.
And my territory, I was leading recruiting for all of the Americas. So from Canada to Peru to Mexico City, New York City, California, Chicago, Michigan, just all over the place. And I was in Florida for a work trip, and I had one day to write 10 performance reviews before I had to go in and train for 3 days back to back. So that morning after flying, I get kind of decongested and feel a little yuck after flying. So I went, took a break, got in the rental car and drove to the pharmacy to pick up some decongestant meds. And pulling out of the pharmacy, a car slammed into the back of my car out of nowhere, just bam. And I will never forget this. Like, I still get chills thinking about this. The first thing I did was I opened the car door. I stood up and I looked up at the sky and shook my fist. And I said, I don't have effing time for this. I have too much work today. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, wow, I wonder if the construction guys that weren't standing in the middle of the street, if anybody got hit. I wonder how the other person is. Am I okay? What's the status of the rental car here? None of that stuff came into my mind. So fast forward, I get back to Seattle in January and I go to see a chiropractor, start getting some care. And, you know, he wanted me to start doing a lot of preventative. I want you to do some massage and chiropractor and
you're
all
injured.
these things.
I mean, you get injured, but you just kind of ignore it.
Ignored it. Like, I'm fine. Again, I just feel like I'll be fine. If I can just work through it. I'm tough. I can muster through it.
I can heal myself.
I can heal myself because 70 hours a week will help that, I'm sure, you know. And I was, it took me 5 months of going through literal pain and suffering to the point where I had a frozen shoulder, eventually had to get shoulder surgery. I just was not listening to my care providers. And it finally was my husband and I in the kitchen. And I literally every day after work just cry. I mean, I was crying in the office. I was in pain. My brain wasn't working. I literally felt like I was just closing down and I was imploding. And he said, "What are you doing this for?" And I just thought, because I have to, because this is what we as humans do. It's my job. So many people depend on me and rely on me. And I finally decided to take a 3-month medical leave of absence. And it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
And at that point, had you ever taken a break before?
I did once while I was at Amazon. Yes.
Okay.
And I took a little break at Amazon and then ended up going back, and it was good. And I continued to work, and then finally realized at Amazon that I had been on multiple different teams, and I just kind of felt, you know, I think there's probably something different out there for me. And I really did want to travel. In the beginning, I thought, I want a job where I travel. It's going to be sexy. Why I thought that would be a good idea with a
because if you've
teenage daughter.
Well, you've never done it before, and, you know, you think it's cool.
Yeah.
And until you're traveling the Americas as a broad strokes.
Exactly. Yeah. I took a 3-month leave of absence, and that first week was the hardest because they turned off all notifications. So a true medical leave of absence, they should be, you don't have access to your computer. You don't check your emails.
Oh, really?
Your team nobody gets to reach out to you. It was a full on medical leave of absence. A formal.
I didn't realize that was a part of a true medical leave. Okay.
Yeah.
So you really were.
Yes,
out.
I was out. So nobody called me on my cell phone. I couldn't touch base with my team. It was really no communication.
Okay.
And the first couple of days, I remember just walking around my house like, oh my God, because nobody needed me. So then I start piling on, what am I doing? This is stupid. My worth was tied up in my work. That was my identity. That's who I was. I did not know how to be by myself. I did not know how to stop and breathe and reflect and think about what I wanted and feel what my body was going through. And so I started seeing all these different medical care providers that were helping me heal from this car accident. And I'm not ashamed to admit, one of the best things I did was I saw a chronic pain therapist. And you don't realize what pain will do to your body and how it really can mess with your mind. And it was great. I mean, we did a lot of talking. She taught me how to meditate because I couldn't slow down. I mean, I literally would breathe from about the top quarter of my lungs up. I mean, I never took full deep breaths.
What you're saying is really resonating with me also, because pain will mess with you more than just about anything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And ignored pain. So I was just ignoring it, pushing it all down, like, literally yelling at my body, like, come on, just get better. Meanwhile, not doing any of the exercises or anything I needed to be doing. So I definitely changed that way of being. And in that 3 months, I found myself. I took time to slow down and I started taking inventory on my life, my relationships, my joy factor. What am I doing for myself? What are my hobbies? I felt like I didn't have any until I finally started spending more time with myself and taking inventory.
Everything that you are saying is something that I have thought and felt during this last 20 months.
Yeah.
Through COVID.
Yes.
And that idea, that existential question of like, what do I do? Like if somebody asks me, what do you do in your spare time? You're like, I don't know. Does like Instagram count? Or what even is that? And then that can turn into a spiral.
Yes.
Also.
For sure.
So how did you kind of go through that process and come out the other end? What did you do?
Yeah. I really did start taking care. I knew first and foremost, I had to take care of my body because my body is what was really kind of slowing me down and shutting down and wanted to stop working. Like I said, I had to get a shoulder surgery. So, during that 3 months, I really just started doing things I knew that were good for me, which was not being on social media, not binging Netflix. I would get out, I would walk, I would go for rides on my Harley, really seeing this therapist help. I started journaling and just writing things down and thinking, where am I at? What am I doing? How am I feeling? I started reading some books, and the whole time processing, I was very much processing with my husband and saying, wow, I don't know if I can go back to this corporate America lifestyle because that's not going to change.
Right.
The demands are
always going to be there.
What can change is me. So I thought, even if I change and I start being able to calm myself down and don't feel so much anxiety and stress, I can go back and do great things at work. But what I realized is at heart, I do not know how to say no.
Preach. It's so, yes. 100%.
And so many people I coach are in the exact same boat. So I, really started thinking about what can I do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with my career? Do I want to stay in recruiting? Yes, I love helping people. That's why I got into recruiting, but I knew that I could help people in other ways. And through a lot of processing with friends and with my husband and with my therapist, kind of started to realize that I don't have to go back to corporate America. There's other things that I could do. So once those 3 months started coming to a close.
You got a lot done in 90 days.
Yeah, I did.
You're still type A even when you're resting.
Yeah. And I was still processing, I still was thinking, I don't know, we'll see. And then I thought, you know what? I can go back to work. I'm going to go back to booking.com and it's going to be great. And, I'll be able to be in that environment and maybe things have changed. And I went back. I was there for 3 days and I quit because nothing changed. And I just knew for me, because I could finally slow down and hear myself, that that's not what I wanted to do anymore. So I finally just had to listen to that and I had to honor that. And I was scared as hell. And I finally decided I know what I want to do. I love helping people. I'm going to go get my coaching certification. So I took a year off, didn't work, and focused 100% of my time and energy on learning and doing this coaching certification process in this program.
Because if you do it, you're doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't do anything half-ass.
Yeah.
So, which was amazing and the biggest gift of my life. And I thank my husband all the time for that gift because he's the one who told me, stop freaking out about bringing in income. You know, if you just would close down like 12 of your wine clubs, we'll be fine. So
Yeah, right.
that was the joke, which I did. And lo and behold, I'm fine. So
He's survived that.
Yeah, I survived it.
Horrible tragedy.
Yes.
Overcoming obstacles everywhere.
And I honestly say it was the best thing I ever did. And I remember showing up like all of my other fellow students we went to New Ventures West down in San Francisco. And on day one, everybody's bright-eyed, you know, hey, teach us how to coach. And I remember our instructors laughing and like thinking, oh, here we go with a new, group of newbies. And they said, you know what, all of you just stop right now. You don't learn any coaching skills. You're not going to learn any of that until the second quarter of the program. The first 3 months is all about you getting to know yourself, supporting yourself, working on yourself before you get to work with actual clients. And I remember thinking, oh, that sounds painful. Literally the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I went so deep. I had my own coach that supported me in my own burnout. I didn't even realize that I was in burnout. I had no clue.
We'll be right back with Lori Prutsman.
Hey everybody, John Gruss with Element Mortgage here again, and we're still dealing with a pretty crazy real estate market, especially on the lending side. Interest rates are still incredibly low. So if you have not had an opportunity to refinance your current home yet, what are you waiting for? Rates are great. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to provide you your options. Secondarily, our homes are all increasing in value. Great chance to potentially tap into some of that equity by utilizing a cash out refinance option. Again, the rates are still incredibly low on that, and you've got an opportunity to tap into the equity for either home improvements, maybe some debt consolidation, whatever that additional cash may be beneficial for. Last, if you're buying a home, you've probably seen the news. It's crazy out there. The market is hot. What's going to be incredibly important is that you have a lender that can help you navigate this process by explaining what's going on, how to strategically position your offer so that it's accepted in a market where sellers are getting multiple offers on properties. And at Element Mortgage, we're happy to do that. We're licensed in 49 states. Sorry, New York. Unfortunately, we're not able to assist, but please reach out to me, John, Jon.Gruss, Grus at elementmortgage.com or 206-954-4787. John Gruss, NMLS number 1108421. Element Mortgage is a division of American Pacific Mortgage, NMLS number 1850, equal housing opportunity.
Before we kind of move through the rest of your school, let's really talk about what burnout is, because I think that definition is important. I Googled it because I'm just like, how do we even decide what this is? So here's the Google definition. Burnout is a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling swamped. It's a result of excessive, prolonged emotional, physical, and mental stress. In many cases, burnout is related to one's job. Burnout happens when you're overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to keep up with life's incessant demands.
Exclamation point.
So I read this definition and my jaw kind of drops. And I'm like, well, I mean, you tap COVID onto the end of it, and we are all in a sustained period of some sort of traumatic stress.
Yes.
We are, like, I'm reading every day about the labor shortage, and I'm like, well, yeah, because none of us can handle anymore. This is like maxed everybody out.
Right.
So is that a pretty accurate definition? I mean, just from your description, it sounds like this is certainly what you went through.
Yes.
And so Is that what they teach you to operate on in the coaching program? Yeah.
And so keep in mind, when I came out of coaching school, I didn't have any kind of a niche, right? I didn't know that I was going to be the burnout coach.
Okay.
That did not happen until almost 2 years after I got done with school.
Okay.
And the two women I worked with that helped me with all of my branding and website and messaging said, you need a niche. And I said, no, I want to help everybody. And they said, that's not how it works. You need a niche. So I thought I would be the authenticity coach, right? Or the vulnerability coach, because so much power can come from that place. And they kept telling me, you're the burnout coach. And I thought, that sounds negative. Ew. And it took me about a week to just sit with that. And then I finally said, hell yes, I am the burnout coach, right? I've seen it, done it, been through it. Now I'm a coach about it. That's what I support people on, is burnout. Learning what it is, experiencing it, slowing down enough to even get in touch with, is this really burnout, or is this anxiety, like you were saying, or is it depression?
Yeah. Well, and I want to talk about that too. So now you are the burnout coach. You found your niche. And I want to talk about, because for everybody listening, I think we're reading about medical professionals going through burnout, just coming to work and saying, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are in that boat. And so, in my, WebMDing of this, the reading about the 5 stages of burnout. I mean, let's really start kind of at the beginning with like your intake, and what you're evaluating people on. How do you decide if somebody is in burnout and in need of your services, right? Like, what's step 1?
Yeah, exactly. So I am what you call an integral coach. And what that means is that I take the whole person. So some coaches will focus on goals, and some coaches say, hey, executive coaches per se, I have a friend who's an executive coach, and they really focus on what's going on within the work environment. Yes, they talk about you as a human being. What I focus on is the whole person always, because that's who shows up wherever you are in this shell of a body. We all have a head, a heart, and a gut. That's your whole self. That's what integral coaching is all about. So I have people that will come to me and say, hey, I'm having a real hard time communicating at work. I keep getting bad reviews. I don't understand what I'm doing. Can you help me with that? Absolutely, I can help with that. What I do is, in my initial intake when I work with clients, is I dig really, 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 really deep. And I tell my clients this before I start working with them, that we're going to go deep. We're going to talk about your feelings. We're going to talk about your emotions. We're going to talk about your relationships. We're going to talk about how you eat. We're going to talk about, what are your vices? We're going to talk about what are your morals. I go deep. And oftentimes people don't necessarily always come to me and say, I'm presenting with burnout. I think I have burnout, right?
Okay.
People will come to me and say, I'm stressed out. Or I've lost my joy. I feel like I don't have a sense of purpose. Or, hey, I'm trying to get promoted at work. What can I do about that? Can you help me with that? So by me digging, and what a lot of great coaches will do is they keep asking questions and keep asking questions. And we get behind the thing that's behind the thing that's behind the thing.
Yeah.
And really draw that out. And so from there, I can assess with my client, what areas in their life are they not tapping into, right? Oftentimes people don't realize, and this is one of the big symptoms of burnout, that when I'm working with people, and it's exactly where I was, they're not in their bodies. They're not experiencing life through a somatic way. Somatic meaning body, meaning they're not feeling things. They might, but they're just not even paying attention to them. So oftentimes what I do is just get my clients to slow down enough. Like I give them an hour of undivided attention and quiet time where they can slow down. They can be seen. They feel heard. And we just talk through some of the basic things. When they say, I feel anxiety and I feel stress, I say, okay, let's talk about that. What does that feel like? Where in your body do you feel that?
So it's really interesting. And I'm listening to you talk about this, the ability to slow down. I have an extremely difficult time with this. And I recently just started back up with a therapist, and it's a specific kind of therapy called EMDR. And it requires you to sit there and follow something with your eyes. And I found myself about 30 minutes in the last time I was there getting really distracted, like to the point where I had to say, this is really hard for me to sit here and focus on one thought for this long. And I think that discomfort is a part of the whole process, but it was really tough for me.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And when I'm coaching, coaching is very different than therapy too. I always want to put that caveat out there that, I often, when I'm doing an intake with a client, will tell if somebody is okay to do coaching. Are you ready to do the hard work, or does somebody really need therapy? And I've declined working with clients and referred them to therapists before.
What's that difference?
Well, the difference is, I'll give you a perfect example. I have a woman who I worked with, and on our 2-hour intake, she cried about 75% of the time. She was dealing with the grief and the loss of her mother, and she was really, really sad and verbally said that she's very depressed. And so after my intake, I stepped back and I thought about it. And I even went to one of my mentor coaches and said, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah, like not my
And I
skill set.
thought maybe I just need to give her to somebody who's been coaching for 20 years. Right. Who's better than me. And my mentor coach looked at me and said, no, you can do this, but here's the approach. So what I told her is, I'm willing to coach you if you want to do the hard work, which she did, but you also need to see a therapist at the same time. And she did.
So, I mean, that takes some serious self-awareness on your part to be like, this is maybe above my coaching pay grade here. You need somebody to help you process
Absolutely.
this.
And unfortunately, there's coaches out there that don't do that. And I've heard of some of those stories.
So it's an interesting distinction too that I want to make also, because everything about burnout resonates with me in particular, which is why I'm so drawn to interviewing you. But I do want to talk about the difference between burnout and anxiety and depression, because I have dealt with anxiety pretty intensely also. And even in the last year, I have had the thought of like, I don't think this is anxiety. Like this feels different to me.
Yeah.
But is it? Is it not? So how do we discern that?
Here's some helpful things to kind of think about. And for your listeners, they can kind of sense and feel, wow, do I feel some of those things? So there's a difference between stress/anxiety versus burnout.
Okay.
So some of the symptoms of stress can be you're characterized by being, you're overengaged, right? I'm stressed out. I'm doing too much. You have really overactive emotions. You cry easily. You get to anger easily. You have a loss of energy. You can kind of lead and notice anxiety in your body, and you know that you're acting that out. And it's definitely a sensation that you feel. Okay. With burnout, some of the symptoms can be just flat out disengagement with everything. Just feeling I don't want to engage.
That is exactly the difference.
Yeah.
It's an apathy.
Yes.
So speaking type A to type A, I'm like turbo about keeping my house clean, right? So like I haven't had a job outside the house where I can channel any of my energy, but never before. And I have been, I've been in my current job as a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. There has never been a time, despite anxiety, despite whatever, where I have been like, ugh, I'm just going to leave the laundry.
Right.
Like I cannot look at the dishes again. I can't make dinner. I'm just leaving it. And I'm going to lay on the couch.
Yeah. And
it is disengagement. That's the word.
Absolutely. And this is what so many people are experiencing right now. I mean, I have these conversations all the time. And, as a burnout coach, I'm constantly doing research. I have the Google word burnout so that it comes up automatically in my feed every day.
Yeah.
I have 20 plus articles every day. Some of the other symptoms of burnout are feeling helplessness and hopelessness. Your emotions feel more blunted, and you've lost motivation, sometimes even hope. And it can lead to detachment and depression. The other big thing to understand about stress versus burnout. So stress involves too much, right? So too many pressures that demand too much of you physically and mentally. Burnout, on the other hand, is about not enough. So being burnt out means feeling empty and mentally exhausted, feeling devoid of motivation.
My gosh.
And just beyond caring.
Yes.
It's like muted.
Yes.
Life is on mute.
Well, yes. I mean, I think I'm going into an existential crisis, realizing this really is it, because there's so much coming in that's so big right now. Right. And so like you and I have talked about, you take an already stressful scenario, then you put COVID onto it.
Yes.
And then also your life still keeps happening on top of this stress. So it gets to this point where you're like, well, I guess I can't deal with this anymore. I'm tired. I have compassion fatigue, which is like a real thing also.
Oh yeah.
I'm tired of feeling sorry for people because I feel sorry for myself. And I guess I just don't have room for any of these feelings anymore. So I'm just going to not feel anything.
Yeah. First of all, I would love to say the fact that you said, I'm starting to see my therapist again. That's a number one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, and we can probably talk about this later, but I've been experiencing some profound grief lately, and it's really had me down. And I recently reached out to a therapist that I used to see years ago as well.
Well, the problem is, and I think this is why you and so many other coaches are going to be so valuable, because there is not a therapist that has an opening right now.
No.
And I'm worried about us as grownups who know that we need to look after our mental health, right? But it is very difficult to even get in. So I'm operating with somebody who, sends out a cancellation list every week, and you're just kind of like, fingers crossed that I can get in there. But even just a couple of sessions have really helped a lot.
Yeah.
But it is that difference between stress and burnout that are very different, where I love what you said about the stress being too much and burnout not being enough. Because the words self-care, like I'm so tired of hearing about it, but you had an Instagram post and I was just clickety clacking on my computer because I wanted to find it.
Yeah.
You did this amazing post about self-care versus self-indulgence.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that for a second, because as we're talking about therapy, this kind of goes into the self-care thing where, you mentioned earlier in the interview that when you first took your medical leave, you did things that were actually good for you, not binging Netflix and I was sitting there like, well, is there something wrong with binging Netflix? But it falls back to that self-care versus self-indulgence. So talk to me about that, because that for me resonated huge.
Right. And often what I find, this is the number one thing that I would say that I find, and this is with all of my clients, males, females, corporate executives, stay-at-home moms, students, doesn't matter who. Nobody puts themselves first. Honestly, I have not coached one client who comes to me and says, I'm perfectly healthy. I do self-care. I take care of myself. Yes, I exercise, and that is a form of self-care for sure. But oftentimes when we're exercising, what are we thinking about? How am I going to do that presentation at work tomorrow? Or, oh yeah, I can't forget this weekend's party and everything I have to get ready for it. What I mean by self-care is it can be a simple thing. And just because you do a simple thing, like go for a 10-minute walk without your cell phone, no technology, and focus on the color of the changing leaves, the smells that are outside. Get your brain off of technology. We are so tethered to TVs and cell phones and computers. And yes, we have to be oftentimes. A lot of us have kids and we need to, be in communication with them. 10 minutes is not going to, hopefully nobody's going to die in 10 minutes. To take that 10-minute walk That's a form of self-care, and it's not being self-indulgent. Because I learned this the hard way. Now, this is something I take in my work with my clients, is that if I don't put myself first and take care of me, nobody else will. And if I don't take care of myself and I don't fill my own cup, how can I help anybody else? How can I be present for anybody else?
I mean, that's 100% true. And I think the bill of goods that Instagram sells us, that Facebook sells us, that self-care is like self-care, buy yourself this new wrinkle cream, or, even exercise. Like, yeah, it can be self-care, but really like it's taking care of your body. That's just like a maintenance cost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so really drilling into what self-care means. I mean, it really does mean carving time out to see a therapist if you need to see a therapist. Yeah. It means going to a physical therapist. It means paying attention to your body and taking care of what it needs. Mm-hmm. All of those things. And I think that we misconstrue that idea a lot.
Yeah.
But I also want to plug your Instagram because it's wonderful. And I did hit that in my nightly scroll, which I do, which is not good.
Oh, sister, you got to stop that.
I know. I'm tethered. But really saying like, I am going to turn my phone off at 9:00 and I'm going to have from 9 to 10 to whatever, watch a documentary or read a book or, those little things. Yeah. That is self-care.
Yeah.
The self-indulgence is letting yourself shop during that time, right?
Right. And look, you know what? We've all done it. I mean, my husband is so sick of every day. Oh, look, another Amazon box. What'd you buy? I don't even know anymore because I just keep buying. How many people can relate with that, right?
Yeah. Me.
So here's the deal. Here's what your listeners, this is a great thing that everybody can benefit from. And I'm talking to you right now also.
Tell me, real talk me.
Here's real talk. We can't even notice if we're burnt out. You're starting to say, I think something's going on. But how you got there was you have to slow down for a moment to realize, what am I feeling? What is happening? Why do I not want to do laundry anymore? What's going on there? We have to get really curious with ourselves. And the key to that is doing it without judgment. We don't get to say, gosh, I wonder why I'm not doing the laundry. Oh, because I'm lazy. That's why, right? That doesn't work. We question, we get curious about what's going on. Because it's only until we can witness and know what is going on that we actually know what we want to change or what we want help with or what we need support on.
And I will say that requires space. And it happened for me truly the first week that my kids went back to school in September. For parents, a lot of parents love summer. And I love that they love summer. But for me, summer is like, that's like, my Super Bowl, right? Like it's a lot of kid schlepping and it's busy and it's fun and it's all like wonderful stuff, but it's a lot of work. And so when my kids left, I finally, the first day they were gone and I'd had quiet for the first time in months.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Like I am not myself. Like I am apathetic. Mm-hmm. I am detached. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't want to do any of the things. And so I kind of allowed space to go through that thought process. And I think a lot of us don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do we get it, Lori? What do we do?
Well, again, so here's another thing. I'm going to say this, and this can sound really harsh, but this is the absolute truth. The only person who can fix your burnout is you.
Right.
Right. So we have to take responsibility as adults for ourselves. And that means being okay to ask for help, being okay to say and admit, I think I need to see a therapist, or I think I want to work with a certified coach on this, or I think I need to have a deep conversation with my spouse or my partner or my best friend, right?
100%.
So that's the first step, is doing that and realizing that, okay, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to help fix this. I'm going to help myself and get support on this with myself. I need to do something about this or it will not change. Right?
Right.
And for everybody, I think it takes, you got to get to your breaking point, right? I always say this. I always say you can't have a breakthrough until you have a breakdown. For me, I knew my breakdown was that car accident.
Yeah.
And yes, it took me 5 months to finally do something about it. But I knew, and looking back now, I'm like, thank God that car accident happened to me, because it was my bleep and wake up call. Right?
Yeah. And that rock bottom moment too. I mean, my kids are doing this self-regulation work at school. And one of the questions that they've asked themselves is to try to shift your way of thinking into, why is this happening to me, to why is this happening for me? And I saw this come home in my fourth grader's folder and I was like, whoa,
that's advanced.
That's really like a great way to look at that, actually. And
yes.
So, but I mean, it's taking the space and having the kind of emotional capacity to have those thoughts. And like you said, the just not judging yourself. I mean, one thing that I realized is that throughout this last couple of years, I have done an absolutely terrible job of taking time away out of my house. Now, a lot of that is because there's been nowhere to go.
Right.
Right. So I think, again, it's like giving ourselves grace in those moments, saying, well, you know, I really haven't been able to go anywhere, but also realizing that like, this is a problem and I need actual physical space to think.
Right.
And knowing that that's a part of it. And, you know, everything has suffered. My podcast schedule this season has been tough, but it's not, it all comes back to me because I'm the one doing it. You know, if I lose motivation, it doesn't happen. If I don't continue reaching out to get, it doesn't. So you're like, this is something that I love, that is my passion, that is now suffering because of this other thing. Like, how do we get this?
It's suffering because this other thing of you, because this other thing is you.
Yes,
also
it's me.
So,
and that's the brutal part of it, is that we are in charge.
Yeah. And I think it's easy. Like, I just listening to some of the things you're saying, and to have you say, you know, I'm at the edge. I have no more. Do I have empathy or compassion? I don't care about anybody. Everybody's in a bad place. Okay. It's so easy right now for everybody to think that and feel that. We're all in the same boat. Yeah, that could be true. And that's great. But guess what? You need to deal with your boat, right? You need to focus on your boat. And knowing that you're at this breaking point, again, like I said, the number one thing starts with slowing down enough to take personal inventory of what is going on. And think about it like, what am I thinking in my head? What am I feeling in my heart? And what am I feeling in my body? And then also, once we take inventory and can slow down enough and say, what is going on with that? It is finding one of those things. Find one little thing that would maybe bring you joy, or that you love to do that you haven't done for a while. And it doesn't need to be, you know, go out in public, just pretend COVID doesn't exist, right? Like, really, what can you do by yourself? Could you take an hour drive one day and drive to Snoqualmie Falls and walk around and go look at the falls? Keep your phone in your car. You don't need to take pictures of it. We all know what they look like.
I'm not going to scrapbook about it later.
Right. And you're just doing this to have imagery to see. We need to change the way our brains work. So we have all these neurons that fire in our brains, and we have these grooves, right? We all have I-5 just rutted in our brain, where every day, same thing. Well, you can create new pathways. You can actually do that. And you do that by changing the way you do things, meaning you take that drive out to Snoqualmie Falls, or as we're sitting here talking, I'm looking outside in your beautiful backyard with beautiful green grass, Something I do that is so simple and so easy to literally get yourself grounded. Even when it's wet out, it's even better. It's like more fun. Go in your backyard, get barefoot, stand in your backyard, firmly planted, ground yourself, and just take some deep breaths in and out and experience that. Literally like feel the breath coming in, feel it going through your body. Think of roots shooting down through your feet into the ground, like grounding yourself. That takes maybe 2 minutes. That's it. That's one little thing you can do that is changing the way you always do things. And you will start to notice changes happening, meaning, how do I respond to stressful situations? How am I responding to my own burnout? I'm doing something for myself. I feel proud about that. I'm happy about that. And I'm the only one that can be in control of that.
I'm sitting here with Tracy Erickson of the Collective Group at Compass. Tracy, you are a great listing agent. I've seen a lot of homes that are listed by the Collective Group. Can you tell me a little bit about what's in your listing plan and how it sets the Collective Group apart from other agents?
Absolutely. You know, Shannon, there's so much more that goes into selling a home than just putting a sign in the front yard. And we really pride ourselves on that. One of the first things we'll do is walk through the home with the seller and advise on the best improvements. And then once we decide what type of work that we're going to do to give you the best ROI, you can hand those keys over and we will project manage the entire thing. Once we have your home looking its best, we will get it staged from top to bottom and have our amazing photographers come in and not only take photographs, but also do videos, drone shots, and even a Matterport. Once that's completed and we have it on the market, the marketing is huge. So we push social media advertising very hard. Our goal is always to achieve 10,000 views of your property on all social media platforms. So our commitment is always to our sellers in this hot Seattle market to get the highest dollar possible for their biggest investment.
Tracy, where can people find you?
They can find us at compass.com, or they can find us on Instagram, Tracy Erickson Homes, or feel free to give me a call, 206-251-6351.
One thing for me that I made the commitment to do, and it's in this vein of I decided I needed to start saying yes to things that were uncomfortable in my life because I'm rutted.
Yeah.
And to our point earlier, like when somebody asks you what your hobbies are, you're like, oh my God. So I have said yes to playing tennis more.
Good.
It's like a nerdy thing. It's also like, as a 43-year-old woman, I'm like, whew, my knees are swollen. But it has brought me a tremendous amount of joy. Mm-hmm. And it's that little stuff. The last podcast I released was with Dr. Kate Monahan, and her book on how to be a relaxed mom has also really helped me take inventory of what my values are. Like, what are my true values and what can I commit to be a more confident, relaxed mom? Mm-hmm. Making the commitment to myself to not yell at my kids has made me feel really good. Yeah. And it's a challenge, but it's not insurmountable. Mm-hmm. So these little things every day that you're talking about are, and I can say because I'm trying in practice to move past this burnout that I feel and this boredom. I mean, because it's kind of one and the same for me, where like we have been on a hamster wheel with COVID. And I think, burning out on your routine is totally normal. But it's how do we break it up, and how do we, you said something earlier too, that I want to come back to, is how do you not judge yourself?
Yes. Remember when I told you about the first quarter of our coaching program and what we had to work on?
Yeah.
That's what yours truly had to work on. I had to focus on getting my inner critic to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
She was so loud and ran everything. I mean, she was running the show. And I say she because I have her named. Her name is Cruella.
Okay.
And she's really quiet now. because I have learned just with practice, knowing how damaging that inner critic is and how damaging it is to judge ourselves. I mean, this is what got me into burnout, right? Because I was always constantly performing for everybody else and I was never good enough and I had to keep proving myself and keep proving myself. That's what got me into burnout. So not to say that I don't ever judge myself. Trust me, we're women.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves, right? Every part of my body could be smaller, all of that. And I just realized that it's not serving anything. And I also realized that I would never talk to my family members, my best friends, my clients. I would never talk to them the way I let my inner critic talk to me. And I finally just took a stand for myself and said, no more. I love myself. I have compassion for myself. I have empathy for myself. And it finally got to the point where that voice can get quieter. And it has. It never goes away 100%.
Right.
And one of the things I learned, which I actually use this in a online virtual women's retreat that I did last year. Every year I do these retreats called Your Intentional Year. It's a 1-day retreat and you really process the last year powerfully. And then you move into what do you want the new year to be and what do you want it to bring? And not just New Year's resolutions, but really heartfelt stuff. And
I want to go.
Yeah, I kick them off. Always do them in the first quarter of the year. And I can talk to you about that later. And so in realizing, everybody has their inner critic. And I knew, especially during COVID, everybody's inner critics were just flared up. Like, why are you not doing this? And don't use COVID as an excuse and just all the stuff that was going on for people. And I walked these women through a virtual exercise where I had everybody close their eyes for a couple minutes. And I had them visualize just this their little selves. So when they were a little kid and happy, joyful, carefree. And then I had them start talking to that little person the way they talk to themselves now. Like, what do you say to yourself now? And one of the girlfriends that was on the call said, I always say, you're easily 10 pounds overweight. Look at how fat your butt is. And I said, would you say that to your little person? Never, never. So the practice was I had them all keep a picture, their screensaver on their phone of their little person when they were 5, when they were 7, whatever. And I did this as well for a month. And anytime I would want to say, you can't do that. What do you think you're doing? My inner critic wanted to come in and boss me around. I would just look at that picture and say, nope, not today, not now. I'm giving her love. I'm giving her empathy because who she is just joy and curiosity. And I'm going to be her today. So you embrace and harness this beautiful, amazing person that you still are. And it really does quiet the inner critic. It's really, really powerful.
That just stopped me in my tracks. Like, I actually can't imagine. I mean, I'm visualizing myself at age 5. I mean, that's a really powerful exercise for all, especially moms. We would never talk to our kids the way that we talk to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You'd never say, well, another lazy day.
Yeah.
You didn't fold all that laundry.
Exactly.
Like, we do so many good things that do outweigh the bad.
Yeah.
And that voice is so loud. Well, maybe we need to challenge everybody out there to put a picture of yourself on your cell phone and try. I'm going to try it.
I would love it. I can't wait to hear about how it goes for you. I'll check in with you in a month to see how that goes.
Yeah. I'm really going to try it.
Yeah.
Because that is and my daughter is 6. And so the effort that we make to speak to our kids in this new, positive parenting way, where we applaud the effort all the time and not the outcome. Like, why can't we be more like that?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, Lori, see, I knew this hour was going to be full of revelations. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
How do people find you?
The easiest way is just LoriPrutsman.com, LoriPrutsman.com. You can go to my website. There's a way to reach out to me through there. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the Seattle Burnout Coach on Instagram. You can follow me there.
I highly recommend that follow because I've actually learned a lot from your feed in terms of, self-care versus self-indulgence is a huge trail stop for me on Instagram where you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate those reminders when I get them every day. So follow her, hire her. I just have to say that I feel so much empathy for all of us out there who are in this position of it's not, I just want to circle back. It's not anxiety, it's apathy.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And I think too, with vaccine mandates and anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxers and all of it, it's gotten to a point where I think a lot of us are disengaged. And that does make us less compassionate people, which I don't think is good. I have absolutely discovered that in myself.
Yes.
We all have pandemic burnout too.
Right.
And so I'm thankful that you were willing to come on to talk about the differences and how we recognize it in ourselves, because I think so many of us are out there thinking there is something wrong with us.
Right.
But I think you can, in the realm of labels being useful just for being able to treat them, I think knowing that this is sort of what I'm going through.
Yeah.
I know that I cannot be alone in this at all.
No.
So I hope this conversation has helped some people say okay, maybe this is more normal than I realize.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And just, again, having, I think, some compassion and empathy for ourselves. It doesn't mean you're feeling sorry for yourself, but recognizing it, really slowing down to recognize it. And one of my favorite quotes from Brene Brown is, if you don't want to burn out, stop living life like you're on fire. Right? Everything doesn't have to be at volume 10 all the time. And only we are in control of that dial.
That just resonates with me so much. So I do tend to go to level 10 no matter what, especially during the holidays. I love it and I want to do everything and I want to do all the things and I want to, and really this last year has kind of given me pause. I'm like, oh, no one actually notices if we don't do, the perfect cookie exchange.
Yeah, we put so much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've talked to a lot of parents who are like, we've kind of come to this place where it's okay to skip practice. It's okay if it's too much. It's okay if this is, I pulled my son, he had soccer first and then water polo. And it was like, why are we trying to do this? One is fine. Let's go have dinner together. And then you can go, your team will not crumble if you are not at soccer practice tonight.
Yeah.
It's all going to be okay. So recognizing those little things and giving ourselves the grace to say no. I think that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah. The power of saying no. That truly is not self-indulgent. That truly is self-care. And that's another big topic we didn't get into, but a big part of managing your burnout. And this is what I coach all my clients on doing, because everybody struggles with this: setting personal boundaries. And saying no is the biggest part, because all we want to do is say yes. People are people pleasers and people are perfectionists.
Well, and people prone to burnout are, for sure.
Yes.
Also.
Absolutely. The power of saying no is amazing. I finally learned that. And I love saying no. I love it because I've always been the yes girl, always, which again is what led to my own personal burnout. So teaching people the power of saying no and really taking that on. And is again, extraordinary.
Saying no with no judgment.
Exactly. Or don't say, no, I'm sorry, but no, I'm so sorry, but no.
Yeah.
Just say, no, I can't do that now. Maybe next week.
Well, I think I've learned several useful tools.
Great.
in this time together. And I hope everybody out there has as well. I think we all experience burnout in our own ways, whether it's, if you're an ICU nurse, if you're a stay-at-home mom, there are some universal things that we all experience together. And I think going through a pandemic has made it more clear that these mental health issues are something that are more common than we realize.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for our community, and reach out to Lori if you feel like you need some help navigating these waters. I certainly know I do. And I'm hoping that will allow some of you listening to give yourself the grace of knowing that it's okay to admit that something's not okay.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you for your time, Lori. You are amazing. And the work that you're doing is a force of good in the world, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori, for your time and willingness to educate us. I want to leave you all with a thought. I read this online. Burnout reduces productivity, saps your energy, leaves you feeling increasingly helpless, hopeless, cynical, and resentful. Eventually, you may feel like you have nothing more to give. But the truth is, you have more to give. You are more than these feelings. I am actively trying to practice what we talked about in this episode, and that includes being honest with myself about how I'm feeling and seeking help with therapy, with letting my family know when I'm overwhelmed, and most importantly, trying to do things that fill my cup with joy. And one of those things is this podcast. I am kissing season 3 goodbye because next season I'm going to have a new focus. That focus will be on people who have made something wonderful during COVID. It includes sharing the stories of several female business owners who have taken opportunities, bet on themselves, and are absolutely crushing it. I am beyond proud of the first 3 seasons of this podcast. And in fact, it still amazes me that I've even been able to produce it. But season 4 is going to be all about inspiration, joy, and success. It's going to be the bucket filler season, and I hope that you'll continue to join me for this ride. Thank you so much for your support and for continuing on this adventure with me. You can find me on Instagram at Right In Front of My Face. You can find me on Twitter at In Front of My Face, and via email at infrontofmyface@gmail.com. I'm going to take a couple months to gather, but I will be back, and I will be telling you the stories of some very, very incredible people. Thank you so much for your continued support, and I cannot wait for season 4.